Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Mount Vernon Unitarian Church on this very special and lovely morning. I'm Dave Keegan, and I'm proud to be part of this church. Whether this is your first time with us or your 1,001st time, know that you are welcome here and that we're glad to have you. Whether you're joining us online or in person, we're glad that we can provide this forum to find comfort and recommit ourselves to the mission of supporting one another in our spiritual journeys, in working for justice, caring for the earth, and building the common good. We gather to recommit ourselves to dismantling systems of oppression and injustice. It is good to be together. And a few announcements. Okay, first of all, I want to note that our music group has expanded a little bit beyond what's in your order of service. Eric and Georgia have joined Rhea and Brian, so thank you all. Okay, and since I'm on music, we're going to challenge you today, okay? If you're not awake, we'll try to wake you up. Okay, for reasons that are beyond momentary explanation, the numbers of the hymns we're singing are not in the order of service that you have in front of you. So listen up, folks, okay? Reverend Kimberley's going to announce each hymn. Go for it. Okay. And as we noted last week, we've moved the offertory and the sharing the plate from the beginning to the middle of the service at the same time as the lighting of candles of joy and sorrow. This is an experiment. We welcome your comments and reactions. We've heard from a few of you, and anyone with more thoughts on this, what I call the experiment in the familiar, please reach out to me or reach out to Becky Brand. After the service, we're going to have a special congregational meeting. But before that, we are going to do the really important work of going out into the commons and having food and drink and being together. So we'll go out in the commons, probably 20, 30 minutes. We'll call you back in, and we'll go from there, okay? And let's see. So finally, again, there will be more information, of course, in the weeks to come, emails, phones, website. Look for continued updates for your worship and other happenings. And if you're ever in need, please know that your church staff is an email or a phone call away. I invite you now to take a deep breath with me as we enter into our time of worship.
I'm the Reverend Kimberley Debus, and it is an honor to be with you all again. Our opening words come from Sarah Lawal. This is us on this grand adventure of life in community. Here, we open our hearts to hear each other's stories, giving and receiving welcome amidst difference. Here, we listen more than we speak and offer grace when tensions rise. Here, we seek justice and peace, hope and healing grounded in our interdependence in the divine spark that lives in all of us. Here, we practice transformative, radical, stubborn love with humility and compassion. Here, we see our faces in each other's eyes and know that here, we belong here. We are home. Here is love. This is us. Come, let us worship together. And now may we rise as our bodies and spirits allow to sing hymn number 1. May nothing evil cross this door.
As we unite our voices to speak aloud the covenant of our community with words known both within our hearts and in the order of service. Love is the teaching of this church. The quest of truth is its daily task, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve life in community, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. This is our covenant with each and with all.
You may be seated. All right. I want to share a wisdom story with you. This is a version of a story written by Emily Arnold McCulley. It's called Crossing the New Bridge. I'm not saying that's where I got the title for the service, but I'm also not saying it isn't where I got the title from the service. Long ago, in a town by the river, the old bridge started creaking and cracking. And the creaking got louder, and the cracking got more worrisome. And then one day, with a big creak and a big crack, the bridge fell into the water. The mayor was among the first on the scene. "This is a calamity," exclaimed the mayor. "The town must have a bridge. We'll run out of food. Someone will have to build a new one." Someone in the crowd shouted, "Call the Jubilates." In the midst of all the commotion, the Jubilates arrived. The mayor asked them if they could build the new bridge, And the Jubilates laughed and said, "Of course we can. We can build anything." The mayor sighed in relief and began to plan his triumphal procession across the completed bridge. But then an old woman tugged at his sleeve. "What about our tradition? The first person to cross the new bridge must be the happiest in town." The happiest in town? And furthermore, the old woman continued, "if anyone else crosses first, a curse will fall on all of us." A curse? Curse? We can't have a curse while I'm in office. How do we find the happiest person? Meanwhile, bang, bang, bang came the sound of the Jubilates already hard at work across the river. It's not a very satisfying bang. There we go. The mayor decided to try the banker, who he decided must be the happiest person in town because he was the richest. The banker was in his vault, assessing, doing inventory. "Sir," said the mayor, "we have chosen you to be the first." "Not now," the banker interrupted. 1026, 1027, 1029. "Oh no, a sovereign is missing. Call the sheriff." The mayor realized that the banker was not really happy after all. He decided to try the grocer next. After all, he thought, they are more beautiful than anyone else, so they must be happier too. The grocer hummed as they arranged melons in their shop window. "Excuse me, are you happy?" The grocer glanced at the mayor. "What a question. If you looked like me, of course you'd be happy." But then, just that moment, as they smiled in the mirror, they shrieked. The horror, the horror! There's a wrinkle on my forehead! And another, don't look at me! I'm ugly! The mayor wiped his forehead, pressed on. Over the rooftops, the bridge marched steadily across the river. The Jubilates never slowed down their work. But down the street, the mayor saw the home of a woman with 12 healthy children. Yes, 12 healthy children. He knocked, and then knocked louder. Over the din, finally, a tired and rattled woman opened the door. "Madam, are you happy?" "What's that? Speak up." "I said, are you happy? We're looking for the happiest person in town." The woman sighed and leaned against the doorframe. "Well, any other day that might be me, but today one of my boys chased another up the tree and he fell down the chimney. And while I was borrowing a ladder so I could go after him, the soup boiled over, the baby ran out and opened the gate, and the cow ran away. This one couldn't run after it because her sister threw her shoes in the well before she broke the bed jumping on it." The mayor backed away slowly. Very sorry to have interrupted her. As he walked up the street, he could hear the Jubilates cheering, "Hurrah!" as they reached the hallway, or the halfway point of the river. The mayor paused to watch, admiring, and then interrupted himself. "I can't waste time admiring the bridge. I need a good night's sleep if I'm going to find the happiest person in town." In the days and the weeks that followed, the bridge came nearer and nearer their shore, and the mayor continued to search high and low. But no one seemed any happier than anyone else. The pie seller had blisters on his feet, and the apothecary had mixed up the hiccup potion with the dropsy potion. The barber had nicked the miller's chin, the rag picker missed their mother who lived across the river, and so on and so on. The mayor was frustrated. Oh dear, I used to be happy myself." But one day, a great cheer rose from the riverbank. "Hooray, we did it, we did it, we did it! It was hard work, but we did did it! It's our best bridge yet! It's an excellent bridge! The Jubilates were dancing as they crossed the bridge into the new town. The mayor wailed, "We can't use it. Tradition says the happiest person in town must cross first, but we couldn't find the happiest person." Mother Jubilate said, "But a moment ago, we were the happiest people in town. We just built the best bridge of our lives, and we just crossed the bridge." Everyone looked at everyone else. And as they realized what Mother Jubilate had said, the cheer rose from the crowd, and then everyone in the town scampered onto the bridge, where they danced back and forth from shore to shore. The mayor even danced with the old woman. He was so happy he forgave her for bringing up the ancient curse in the first place. The Jubilates, of course, had been happy all along. And so we'll take this moment to sing our children to religious ed and other classes with "We Hold You in Our Love as You Go, As You Go."
We come now to our offertory, and Mount Vernon Unitarian Church continues to share the plate with committed organizations that you, our members, have chosen. This morning, our offering is being shared with the South County Task Force. This is a nonprofit, nonpartisan activist group of individuals and organizations that advocate for equitable opportunities in treatment and development along the Route 1 corridor. Founded by Ann Andrews, who was a member of MVUC in the mid-1970s, the task force has championed increased county social services, improved health care, tenants' rights, land security, better conditions for mobile home park residents, and economic development that benefits the current residents as well as the developers. It's the only group whose mission is to advocate at county and state levels for low-income people, mainly people of color, in this area. While other amazing groups provide many direct services, South County Task Force continues to work on influencing county policy and practice. So what have they done? They've organized residents to promote construction of the Pendle homeless shelter to replace the Kennedy shelter, and that will be part of the new construction of the new firehouse on Beacon Hill. They've worked on preservation and improvement of 5 mobile home parks, more mental health care, more services for homeless people, especially in the heat of the summer as we've just experienced, and preservation and construction of new affordable housing. If you'd like more information, Mary Payton is here today. There's Mary over there. You can ask her. We're a community that invites spiritual and material generosity from our members and friends. I give because I found here a community that honors each of us and supports each of us in our own personal struggles and faith journeys. And so I'll take this moment to say I am deeply grateful to all of you who have supported me as I've coped with cancer over the past year. Thank you. I invite this gathered community to offer whatever you feel most comfortable with in spirit and in financial generosity for the mission of our church community. If you'd like to write a check and mail it in for the offering, please make it to MVUC, and in the memo line indicate how you'd like it to be used. You can also follow the link in your program to make a one-time or recurring payment. We are so grateful for your donation. And during the offering, we invite you to come forward in silence and light a candle to commemorate a joy or sorrow. Will the ushers please come forward?
Let us enter a spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, known by many names, yet by no name fully known, we gather today with hopes and dreams, and also with fears and wounds. We pause in the stillness to rest for a moment, so we can feel what stirs within us. May we find in this gathering the comfort of those who care. May we encounter patience along our growing edges and compassion in our most tender spots. May we find the encouragement we need to face our challenges and nurture ourselves and each other. And in the presence of suffering around the world, may we practice kindness where we are. May our gestures of compassion and generosity seed possibility. May we walk humbly with one another, choosing reconciliation over resentment. And when life presses in and shifts us off balance, when pain assails us, when frustration mounts, may the rhythm of our breath steady us and bring us back to a place of gratitude. Blessed be, Ashe, and Amen. We continue our meditation with 1009 in the Teal Hymnal, meditation on breathing.
The piano will sing through one. Oh, I'm not here, by the way. The piano will play through once. We'll do the melody and then the lovely descant, and then add the bass. Melody. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
So he's not here, but thank you. We are very grateful. This morning, our reading is a poem by William E. Stafford, A Ritual to Read to Each Other. If you don't know the kind of person I am, and I don't know the kind of person you are, a pattern that others made may prevail in the world, and following the wrong God home, we may miss our star. For there is many a small betrayal in the mind, a shrug that lets a fragile sequence break, sending with shouts the horrible errors of childhood storming out to play through the broken dike. And as elephants parade, holding each elephant's tail, but if one wanders, the circus won't find the park. I call it cruel, and maybe the root of all cruelty, to know what occurs, but not recognize the fact. And so I appeal to a voice, to something shadowy, a remote, important region in all who talk. Though we could fool one another, we should consider lest the parade of our mutual life get lost in the dark. For it is important that awake people be awake, or a breaking line may discourage them back to sleep. The signals we give, yes or no, or maybe, should be clear. The darkness around us is deep.
Make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring your love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. And when there's doubt, true faith in you. Oh, Master, grant that I may never seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there's despair in life, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, only light. And where there's sadness, ever joy. Oh, Master, grant that I may never seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned, in giving of ourselves that we receive, and in dying that we're born to eternal life.
In 1915, the Purity Distilling Company in Boston, Massachusetts, built a large storage tank on the harbor. This tank was built to support the import of molasses. Molasses can be distilled into rum or refined into various food and, oddly enough, military uses. The tank was huge, with anticipated capacity of 2.3 million gallons, which should have been fine, except the tank wasn't well built, and it wasn't fully tested for leaks before the first shipment of molasses arrived weeks early. But over the next 4 years, as the molasses would come in, the tank held. I mean, there would be some minor leaks and general stickiness in the streets. The business carried on. It was very useful, obviously, during the First World War. Now, of course, Molasses gets viscous in the heat, so in the summers there was a little bit more that leaked out, but people got used to it, used to the general sweetness in the air. But of course, as we know, Boston winters get very cold. So shipments coming in over the winter were less likely to flow or leak, even though they had to heat up the molasses a bit to get it into the tank. Cold winters, except on January 15th, 1919, they had a winter thaw, kind of the opposite of the fake fall we had this last week, where temperatures rose well into the 40s. And of course, a new shipment of molasses came in. And oh, by the way, the vent that in the summer helped the gases from fermentation escape to maintain pressure was still closed because it was cold, it was winter. Around 12:30 p.m., passersby noticed much stickier streets than they remembered. And then they heard a rat-a-tat-tat that sounded like a Tommy gun, but which were in fact rivets popping. And then there was a slow, deep rumble that got louder and louder until the tank collapsed. And a 25-foot wave of molasses ran through the streets at about 35 miles an hour. 2.3 million gallons of molasses flooded the streets and knocked down buildings. In the end, 21 people died and over 100 were injured. What was a slow, sticky, manageable drip suddenly became a tsunami. The flood was slow until it wasn't. Just kind of where this congregation is today. For those who are visiting, online or in person, this is about to get pretty intimate, but I hope you'll still find some meaning in what I preach today. When a lot of things have happened over the last few years that have affected who you are and the stories you're telling. You've had a pandemic, a beloved minister took a new call, you had an interim, then the excitement of a new minister, and over time you realize some things were sticky, and you're asking questions about process and identity and governance. And then your newly called minister resigns. The molasses container has burst open, filling the streets. The congregation is left with a lot of wondering and confusion and frustration. And it's taken until today, finally, to have a chance to listen to one another in order to begin rebuilding trust, connection, and community. It's a lot. And I suspect you can imagine a bit what it feels like to be the mayor of Boston in 1919, filled with panic and worry, or what it might be like to be the mayor of the town in our story where the bridge collapsed and the atmosphere of the town is filled with worry and confusion and fear over a curse that seems unbreakable. Now, the story about the new bridge is often told about finding joy and not letting the how stop the progress of yes when a big change occurs. And yes, I've used it that way, and that meaning is there. But this story is also about how we confront change and crisis. What stories do we tell? How do we communicate? And what happens when we don't take into account other people's experiences? So let's think about that. Let's go back to the story. Our mayor and the townspeople all experienced the same change moment, the creaking bridge finally collapsing. But everyone has a different reaction, and that's not surprising. We know from experience that two people can witness the same thing and come out with very different opinions about it. I mean, have you ever gone to see a movie with someone and then come out and argue about what you saw? Or how much you love or hate the hymn you just sang, right? So our mayor experienced a shock over the bridge collapse and then was shook by the curse. And that led him into a fearful response to search high and low for the happiest person. But the Jubilatis were like, yeah, all right, cool, we get to build a bridge. And everyone else, went on with their lives, counting money, writing poetry, selling vegetables, parenting. So when the Jubilates finished the bridge and let out a great shout, the rest of the town was probably pretty happy. The Jubilates certainly were, but the mayor didn't feel joy. He was panicked. Now, this story has a happy ending. Will yours? Or will some of you wander, letting a pattern that others made prevail? Will you find your star? What is your star? Now, I'm a relative outsider. I've come to know you through a series of services that I have led here, and I do have affection for you. I'm always excited when I get an email from Becky Brandt. So when I heard about your struggles this year, culminating in your minister's resignation, my heart went out to you. And I asked, how could I be of service? And like the Jubilates, I have come to be with you, to help you make sense of the experiences of the past year, to help you find your patterns, to reconnect, to clean up the molasses, to build the bridge. What you're about to do after lunch is a courageous thing. You've said we have questions and concerns and we're willing to break ourselves open to heartache and conflict because this congregation matters. This community matters. This faith matters. Every person in this room and on Zoom and those who couldn't make it matters. It's so easy for us to avoid the hard conversations. I was thinking about how my parents knew how much I hated conflict, that they would wait until I went to bed and go to the other side of the house to have their fights, right? So I know what it feels like to not want to have hard conversations. But I have learned that that way lies anger and disappointment and resentment and disengagement. Hard conversations is how the healing starts. It's how relationships become stronger. It's how our covenant with one another becomes robust and resilient. It's how we grow into harmony with the divine and with one another. It's how we make sure the parade of our mutual life doesn't get lost in the dark. I love Stafford's poem. It gets to the heart of these questions. He delivers a warning and a prescription. Communication is key, and a casual relationship to the words we say and the ways we listen can sometimes cause harm. So how shall we listen? Probably not by holding each other's tail. I mean, not only do we not have tails, but that's incredibly inappropriate. We'll leave that to the elephants. But how we listen matters as much in these moments as how we speak. Quaker author Parker Palmer writes extensively about this in his book, A Hidden Wholeness, The Journey Toward a Divided Life. And now his book is largely about individuals, soul building, and small group connections. But what he teaches about listening is invaluable to journeying toward even an undivided congregation. Go figure, a Quaker teaching us about listening. Anyway, how we listen begins with how we show up. Could be easy to get really distracted and not really pay attention. It's like I like to see movies in the movie theater rather than on TV because I'm primed to show up and pay attention. Because I'll get really distracted by anything else in my house if I'm watching a movie on TV. Showing up means taking a little time to center ourselves, however you do that, with a deep breath or a settling wiggle or a few inner words of positive self-talk. And then we must allow the speaker their time. And what I mean by this is that they have something to say, and we don't know what it is they're going to say, even if we think we know. The next part is the hardest. We rarely listen to actually hear what somebody else is saying. Too often we half listen, formulating what we're going to say or correct or advise. When we forget, when we engage in crosstalk, when we don't pay attention, when we prejudge someone else's words, we aren't really listening at all. And that's hard and frustrating. So how we manage that is fairly simple but effective. I don't know if he would call it the golden rule, but at UU Wellspring Spiritual Deepening, we call Parker Palmer's statement about this the golden rule. In conversation, when you are deeply listening, no fixing, no advising, no setting each other straight. It means we take in what is offered, we witness. We might be invited to advise or problem solve, but our role is not to come up with solutions when we are listening to another's experience, another's hurts, another's fears. We are there to listen, witness, hold that space, which means we need to take time. So how many rom-coms have we seen where the two lovers are fighting and they're angry and you don't like me and you don't like me, and one says, you just don't understand, I love you, and the other one keeps going, but you're terrible, and what? What did you just say? Right? It's that moment. We need time to actually hear what somebody else has said, to let our brains process and catch up. So when you're in a hard conversation, allow some breaths, some seconds of silence, as many as you need before the next person speaks. It gives them space to figure out, now, what do I want to say? Those silences are precious because truth emerges in the silence for the listener and the speaker. This process, especially when having hard conversations, matters. It's so easy to talk over one another or be too busy thinking about what we're going to say that we miss what others have said. So in that pause, our brains get to think and consider. Now, we'll have plenty of time to practice this today at the meeting. But it's worth putting this tool in your back pocket whenever you have to have a hard conversation. Our poor mayor was so worried about the curse that he never really realized that citizens of his town were struggling with financial issues and deep questions about self and identity and childcare and all manner of other things. Maybe if he'd listened, maybe the people would have been happy after all, and so may he. But look, here's my bigger point, the so what, if you will, of the sermon. This congregation is a microcosm, right? It's a place to learn how to do all this stuff that is so vital and helps us do our work beyond our walls. You don't have to go very far outside this congregation to find other hard conversations to have. Conversations about our democracy, racism, bigotry, homelessness, poverty, body autonomy, disability justice, family structures, climate change, corporatism, and so on and so on and so on. I say this often, but I really mean it. We have to get it right inside our walls if we have any hope of getting it right outside our walls. Here today is where we get to practice having hard conversations. And don't get me wrong, the hard conversations you'll be having today are real and important. They're about covenant, respect, transparency, commitment, and connection. They are about healing and moving forward. So in other words, Today's a win-win. Learn how to do work in the world, learn how to do work with each other. Okay, that was supposed to be funny. You're supposed to laugh at me. I need a laugh track or a sign, right? Anyway, having hard conversations well means you set aside blame and complaint. It means acknowledging different perspectives, different experiences. It means being the authority of your own story and remembering that each person is the authority of their own story too. But most of all, it means choosing to be in relationship over being right. When we have hard conversations well, we are invitational. We open ourselves up to possibilities. We take ownership of our own behaviors and our own thoughts. We make room for dissent in respectful ways. We commit over and over to coming back to the table, to working together, to building a new path forward. We don't want to get stuck in the molasses or cut off from the world or, worst of all, lost in the dark. And yet we have to make the first move, take the first step, cross the first hurdle. That's this meeting. This hard conversation. We don't know for sure how it's going to go, although we all hope it is toward health and connection. I invite you to be patient with yourself and with others. It is important to remember that it took months of dedicated work to clean up the molasses spill in Boston. The cleanup in the immediate area took weeks, with several hundred people contributing to the effort. They had to bring in fire engines to pull salt water out because the salt water would dissolve the molasses, and they did this so much so that the Boston Harbor was brown for ages. And then it took even longer to clear up the rest of Boston and the suburbs because rescue workers and cleanup crews and sightseers and workers had tracked molasses through the streets and spread it onto subway platforms, to the seats inside trains and streetcars, to payphone handsets, to homes, to countless other places. It was reported that everything a Bostonian touched was sticky. Things are going to be sticky for a while. Or to quote the song we're about to sing, the road will be muddy and rough, but you will get there. You will find your way. We will find our way. So let us find our way together. And let us sing 1020 with our bodies engaged. We'll sing Woyaya. 1020.
Heaven knows where we are going, but we don't know it.
And please remain standing and join me in the words as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our benediction comes from Buddhist writings. Let all beings be happy, weak or strong or high, middle or low estate, small or great, visible or invisible, near or far, alive or still to be born. May they all be perfectly happy. May our loving thoughts fill the whole world, above, below, across, without limit. Our love will know no obstacles, a boundless goodwill toward the whole world, unrestricted, free of hatred or enmity. As long as we are awake, we should cultivate this love in our hearts. Go in love, go in joy, go in peace. Thank you.
And the only thing to say after that is, hallelujah. Okay, thank you. Thank you to our musicians. Thank you to all of you. Take a break. go get something to drink, get something to eat, and we'll call ourselves back together in about a half hour. Thank you all for being here.